The Alaskan coastline is defined by freezing rain, tidal rivers that violently reverse direction, and the fresh tracks of apex predators in the mud. The ocean water here sits between 40 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Submerge a body in that current, and hypothermia becomes an immediate, pressing threat. Look at this diagram of human heat loss. When exposed to these temperatures, thermal energy radiates away from your core almost instantly, while dehydration sets in behind the scenes. Survival here is quite literally a biological clock ticking down. Yet, the reality we see in the footage defies that ticking clock. The survivalist sleeps warmly through the freezing night, eats hot pancakes in bed, and bakes fresh bread from scratch. Surviving the Alaskan coast relies heavily on applied thermodynamics, using physics to build protective, comfortable microclimates in an otherwise hostile environment. When daylight fades on the coast, ambient temperatures drop to near freezing. Getting a camp set up immediately is the highest priority. This diagram shows the geometry of a basic heat trap. A U-shape of stones and a flat canvas wall create a closed thermal loop. The dense rocks absorb energy from the flames and bounce that radiant heat directly to the center, where the survivalist sits. As the weather degrades later in the trip, he upgrades to a completely enclosed thermal system, a portable metal tent stove. By containing the fire entirely inside a metal box within a sealed tent, the interior temperature climbs until it's comfortably warm inside, creating a physical barrier against the freezing rain pouring down outside. Using careful placement of stones, canvas, and metal, the baseline freezing temperatures of the Alaskan wilderness are successfully neutralized. Keeping that internal human furnace running requires constant, heavy inputs of fuel. That means finding reliable sources of hydration and dense calories. Along the coast, ocean tides push heavy salt water far upstream into the river systems. The water becomes brackish and undrinkable. Using a gravity-fed filter system pulls surface water down through micropores, stripping out the impurities. Securing 4 liters of this clean, fresh water is a mandatory requirement before focusing on anything else. With hydration secured, the focus shifts to calories. The best feeding grounds for marine life are located directly underneath the dark, churning ocean waters, swelling against these steep, vertical rock cliff faces. Dropping a line into these deep pockets yields a heavy harvest of black bass and rockfish, pulling high-quality lean muscle out of the cold ocean. This split chart breaks down the required caloric input. Lean fish protein provides a solid baseline, but falls short of offsetting the massive energy drain of freezing temperatures. The deficit is filled by imported fats and sugars, like brie, macadamia nuts, and honey. Consuming dense calories and maintaining pure hydration provides the combustible fuel the body needs to keep its internal furnace burning against the elements. Paddling a kayak for 5 hours against ripping currents and navigating a maze of towering blue icebergs strips away physical energy and drains cognitive focus. To recover from that specific kind of exhaustion, the survivalist builds an improvised bushcraft bread oven. By placing a sealed pot next to the hot coals, leftover thermal energy from the wood fire is captured to slowly proof the dough, eventually baking it into a loaf with a perfectly crispy crust. Eating warm, fresh bread coated in honey serves a very specific purpose. It rebuilds the vital psychological armor required to stay alert and motivated in a landscape actively trying to freeze you out. By the final morning, the environment makes one last push. Heavy rain turns the coastal terrain into dark mud as the survivalist packs up his gear to wait for extraction. On the outside, every piece of canvas and metal is soaked, dirty, and chaotic. But internally, his physical and mental state remain completely intact. Over 4 days of dodging multi-ton icebergs and sleeping in freezing rain, he never once crossed the line into actual physical distress. True wilderness mastery requires abandoning the idea of fighting nature. Instead, you apply physics, manage your resources, and engineer a comfortable home out of thin air, even in the most unforgiving corners of the globe.